certification is conferred by Silicon Andhra in affiliation with Potti Sriramulu Telugu University, a NAC-accredited institution in India. This brilliant initiative that helps teach Indian music and dances the original Indian way is now here. Registrations are now open. Call us on 1866 572 6723 or write to support@sampada.siliconandhra.org.
नाट्यकीर्तनम् नाट्यकीर्तनम् नटराजुकु नीराजनम् नाट्यकीर्तनम् भरतमुनिकिदे समर्पणम् नाट्यकीर्तनम् नवरसाभिनय समर्पणम् वाग्गेयकार नाट्य संगीत चतुल सम्मेलनम् नाट्यकीर्तनम् 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 कीर्तनम् नाट्यकीर्तनम्.
Namaskaram, all the viewers. On behalf of Silicon Andhra Music Performing Arts and Dance Academy, Sampada, I invite you all for today's panel discussion on Natya Kirtanam Phase 2 edition. Just to give a little bit introduction about Sampada. Sampada is an initiative of Silicon Andhra offering junior and senior certificate courses in affiliation with the Potti Sriramulu Telugu University for the students who are learning Carnatic music, Indian classical dances. In last 4 years, there are more than 2,500 students, 250 plus schools across USA and Canada are part of this program. I want to take this opportunity to thank all the teachers who are behind the success of Sampada. Sampada did not want to limit its boundaries just to offer the certificate for the kids learning Carnatic music or Kuchipudi dance, art form, any art form to that matter, or Hindustani music. Sampada has taken up several initiatives, and Nata Kirtanam is one such initiative. Through Nata Kirtanam, we are trying to popularize lesser known compositions of different Vagyakaras through Kuchipudi, Bharatanatyam, and other classical dances. In phase 1, we have taken up 15 songs, out of which 10 are from Annamaya track and another 5 from Ramadasu. And we produced audio tracks and we presented all these 15 items last year and made it available to all the students, all the teachers who are part of Sampada family. In the phase 2, we wanted to do 10, but we are now this year we are releasing 8 songs, and the participant in the panel discussion today, they are all celebrities in their fields. They are well-known artists. We requested these artists to come and help us, because if they take up this song and if they choreograph and they present this item, so it will reach to a wider audience, wider people, you know. And the goal here is, it's not that Sampada or Silicon Andhra or Deenababu or Anupama has to do this work. This should be an inspiration for a lot of other people, other organizations or other artists to explore. I know we have a lot of things that we got it from the older generation, the previous generations, you know, your gurus, they have there's a lot of treasure out there. That is gold. We keep it, we preserve it. But at the same time, there is a need. I personally feel there is a need to explore new items and make it more attractive for the younger generation to pursue this art form. That is the only intent behind this project. This is nothing to do with actual core, objective of Sampada, but this is a byproduct of that. And this is helping, and I'm receiving a lot of appreciation for what we do here from our teachers. And Raga Sampada is similar project we launched recently, where we are trying to provide the master class with the digitalized notations to the music gurus. Where, for example, a lot of Vagayakaras, the music composers, Nehru Garu, Balamurli Garu, they have composed a lot of songs. How did they compose? In the originally. So unfortunately, we don't have the opportunity, to go and meet them and to record those things because technology was not out there. Now we are requesting their direct disciples to record those songs and make it available in the digital format that, the teachers can use it as a reference and, they use their learn their items, the original composition and add their manodharma to it. So like that, we also have taken up another charity project in the recent COVID times. We helped more than 1,000 families across 5 states back in India with the wonderful support, generous support from a lot of donors who have come forward to support during that crisis. So like that, we have there are a lot of other things that are in works, and we are doing a lot of through Sampada Sabha. Every month we are organizing a lot of concerts, the dance performances, providing the opportunities for the teachers here and the students here, and also the artists from India or all over the country, all over the world. That is about just Sampada for the people who are watching this for first time. And I would like to take this opportunity to welcome all these performers, artists for today's panel discussion. And I want to take this opportunity to thank Anupama Garu, who is driving this Annamaya track, because Annamaya is close to her. I saw some of the posts, Anupama Annamaya. So now her name is slowly changing from Anupama Kylash. So, and she has done a lot of work and very passionate about this. I have chosen Anupama Garu. I have requested her to drive this project. And later on, you all know the story. How many times she called you, she messaged you, and how many times I have been bugging her. Swetha Garu is another person that, in the phase 2 edition, she took the complete responsibility of producing these audio tracks for us. And all I was doing is just sitting here. Every alternative week, I send them the message. And every week, I pray God, Anupama Garu should not have any workshops this month or this week, because she's very busy. Every week or other, she's doing something or other. Deenababu, I have this workshop coming up. After this, I will work on this. And my goal was to at least release 100 tracks in 3 years' time. She said, that is, so you are very ambitious. Let us work slowly and let us take 6 or 8 items in a year. That is more than enough. But yeah, that was my wish list. I wanted to bring at least 100 tracks, but we are going slow. But yeah, I think we want to do it in the right way, and we would like to get your feedback after this program. Anything that we could improve, anything we could change, anything that we could add, we're most welcome to please share your feedback. And with that, I welcome all these artists, and I want to hand it over to Anupama Garu to run this panel discussion session. Anupama Garu, thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Deenababu Garu. And on behalf of Sampada Silicon Andhra and the Nata Kirtanam project, it gives me great pleasure, namaskaram, to all the celebrity artists that I have here seated in front of me today. These artists need no introduction. We know them as exemplary performers, teachers, gurus, inspirational people in their own right. And each and every one of them has contributed immensely to the field of dance, as we all know. It's my great privilege and honor, and I'm extremely grateful to each and every one of you for having accepted to be part of the phase 2 of Natya Kirtanam. And a very warm welcome to all of you. Before we start the panel discussion, a few words about the Natya Kirtanam Annamacharya phase of the project. So this was an idea that was launched last year. And last year we had the very young performers perform 10 of the Annamacharya compositions. This time we wanted to bring in compositions which are very, very little known. With Annamacharya, I cannot say that they are not known at all, because there are over 15,000 available compositions of Annamacharya, spread across 29 volumes published by the TTD. So who has picked which composition in which part of the world and has performed it? It's very difficult for us to say. So I cannot make the claim that this is the first time that these songs are being performed, but I can definitely make the claim that these are very, very lesser known compositions of Annamacharya, and hardly anyone would have heard these songs. Especially some of the Sanskrit compositions that we have taken also are not known. They're not known as well as the other Sanskrit compositions of Annamacharya, like Sriman Narayana or Devadevam Bhaje or Vande Vasudevam. Those are the famous songs. So these are much, much lesser known. And we are extremely grateful to Swetha Prasad for taking up this challenge and composing all the 10 pieces actually, but we are presenting only 8 right now. And also we are very grateful to Renuka Prasad and his entire team of musicians to have worked on this single-mindedly and produced all the tracks in record time. Also, actually, they have really given us very good feedback, great output. So thank you so much. So before, now I will just go into the discussion. And actually my first question I thought I'll put to Swetha, because she's somebody who has composed all the tracks, all the 10 tracks. So Swetha, what I wanted to know from you is, you have regularly been composing pieces of Ramadasu, of Annamacharya. You have several compositions which you have made on these particular poets. So I want you to tell me, looking at the range of the 10 songs that were given to you, because this is a wide range of songs you were given. There are Sanskrit Namavalis, there is Sringara Sankirtanas, there are Adhyatma Sankirtanas, there are Tattvams. So in this entire range, like, how did you carry this off? Like, how did you plan your ragas? How did you look at the musical value of each composition? So that's something I'd really like to know from you.
Anupama garu, thank you so much for asking me this. Actually, first 5 I've done in the first phase, and I had a little gap between the first 5 and the second set of 5 songs. So I had little time to, think over about the next 5. If 10 were on the same time, it would have been really very difficult for me to, really select a particular ragam for a particular composition.
Yes.
And another major challenge, I would say, that you always throw on me. So I always think about that. You keep on explaining multiple layers or multi-dimensional view of one particular kriti, which I always learn a lot from you. That particular cases are very difficult and different to handle, because if it is just one rasa or one kind of a feeling which is being portrayed, just selecting one ragam is very, very easy for me actually. Because we musicians, we're always in that musical zone. We always keep playing with multiple ragas and, and having like a vast experience. So probably if this is the song and this is the meaning, and probably I can just fit into one ragam. And fitting one ragam into multi-dimensional thoughts and multiple layers is a very difficult task for me. Yes. I had been thinking, I had been tuning, and I had been redoing it. I just thought, no, this wouldn't work for this. It was definitely a challenge for me to select the right ragam, because I don't want it to be, how can I put it? It's likewise, if there is a generalized meaning of devotion, or general ragas like Arabhi, Abheri, or Kalyani or any general raga would just, normally just fit in to a nice tune and we can just, but these kind of stuff I had to think twice and thrice for fitting it into one particular ragam, but bring out those multi-dimensional thoughts of the poet and also your perceptions into it.
I think we discussed a lot even on Mikkil Nerpari Alamelu Manga,
Yes,
which Anuradha
yes.
Nehru Garu is doing. So,
Yes,
what
yes.
kind of a raga would suit. Yeah.
Mhm.
So thank you, Swetha. I'll come back to you.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
I wanted to ask Praveen ji, because he is doing a Sanskrit composition, which is primarily a Namavali. So it talks about all the different names of Lord Vishnu. Now, technically speaking, it's not really Sahityam, which is meaningful, which conveys a certain meaning, but it is a series of different names like Vasudeva, there are so many names of Vishnu in that. So performing to a Namavali, how did you string the ideas together? And what was your, what according to you is the crux of how you approached, a song that is independent Namavalis throughout? So you just tell us about that.
Yeah, like you said, Namavalis are sometimes very challenged for you to explore or expand because they're just basically the names of one particular god. Like Vishnu has got all these so many names: Madhava, Narayana, Pandari, Ramana, Padmanabha. So sometimes when we always end up as a dancer to show different poses of the god. For Padmanabha, we have an option, then something like Pandari Ramana being something like Rama. So these were the only things. But I think one advantage for me with this song was the way it was composed, and I think the number of times the way it was kind of divided. I'm saying like the first line, I very much remember the first line. It says Madhava, Bhudava, Madana Janaka. It was a very beautiful line for me to read that, because Madhava, it says Ma is Lakshmi, Dava is husband. So Lakshmi is husband, Bhudava, Bhudevi's husband.
Yes.
So it was a very beautiful thing. Then for me, if it was just like a one line kind of repetition, then I would have just done probably the hastas and I would have just moved on. But since a number of times repetitions was there, and also for me, I remember long back seeing in Melkote a picture of Vishnu with Lakshmi standing to his left and Bhudevi sitting on top of his shoulder. Yes. That image had stuck to me for quite a very long time. I said it was quite an interesting one. And when this composition came, I found this interesting, and I thought maybe I could use those images when I'm performing. Because otherwise, like I said, it'll just become hastas. So sometimes when these lines are repeated, then probably you'll get some ideas to kind of bring in some images which is not generally much used. Like I said, we don't see generally Vishnu showing that Bhudevi is sitting on his shoulder. Yes. Even though we talk about it's a Varaha Avatara, right? But it's a beautiful posture to see that she's sitting on top of his shoulder. So I've kind of used these images more while composing this dance. Well, I should say thanks to Swetha ji for singing it a number of times, so that I could bring in those ideas here to incorporate it, apart from the Padasha Hastas.
Yes. Thank you, Praveen. We'll come back to you for the second question. But in contrast, I wanted to ask Vidhya ji, your song is so very different from, something that Praveen has done or Srikant ji has done, or, so yours is a beautiful Sringara Sankirtana. And it talks about the Sakhi. So it's filled with comparisons throughout, similes and metaphors. And you are known for your delineation of Sringara. So how different did you find Annamaya's handling of Sringara or Annamaya's Bani in comparison with all the other Sringara poets you've done? For example, you've done so much of Ashtapadi. And so how did you find that difference and how did you handle that difference?
That's a wonderful question, Anupama. When I first started working on this, I actually had to really delve deep, because obviously this is one of the first Annamaya's Sringara Padas that I've handled. Actually, the first, if I'm not mistaken. So it was a little challenging at first to find those nuggets inside, within the words, because there is very rich imagery, and you had beautifully explained all the imagery to me. So when you look at the imagery, all the everything that one needs to show is in the lyrics, in the words that Annamaya just gives it to you. Then you wonder what is left for me to do, right? Where do I fill those spaces? So that was a challenge when I started, as opposed to some of the other Sringara, composers that I've worked with, like you mentioned. So here, in that sense, the thread of nature that he uses throughout, right?
Yes.
Where it is, whether it is the moon, the bees, and we're not talking only about comparison to the physical attributes. It's even things like her sweat, things like, obviously her lips, and there are so many beautiful aspects of that extreme nature of the Sringara that took me to a different place compared to what I've worked with before. So I would say that in that, I found the thread. I found the idea of connecting those almost like those beads of nature, or pearls of nature, that he uses to thread the whole composition like a garland. And so that it starts out with something that is possibly a gentle exploration of the Sringara, and then by the time the composition is over, you get the sense of intensity at the end of it. And it's so intense towards the end that even though the Sakhi is who starts the composition for me, I forgot about her in my delineation. And then later I realized, oops, what happened to her? So it's because there is such beauty in that, in the comparison that he makes between Alamelumanga and Venkateshwara. And you fall in love with Alamelumanga all over again as a result. And there is, like we see in that Sampada, the word Sampada is wealth, and she is the goddess of wealth, like you explained, right? So how can his wealth be any more than hers? And she's resplendent with so much of it. And so I think what started as a challenge made me fall in love with Alamelumanga as Venkateshwara would himself. So so there I was able to lose myself in that sense of that arc, and that the beginning to that that build up of the Sringara.
Lovely. Thank you, Vidhyaji. I'll have another question for you a little later. But I listening to Vidhyaji, I wanted to ask Anuradha Nehru because she has also done a song on Alamelumanga, completely on Alamelumanga. In fact, describes Alamelumanga in deep detail and says Mikkili Nerpari Alamelumanga. Alamelumanga is so skilled. So, and being a very senior Kuchipudi practitioner of the Vempati Master Garu style, I wanted to know whether, you have, did the Daruvu system or the Daruvu Paddhati, almost it's like a Pravesha Daruvu actually. So did that kind of impact you, or did you keep that influence away, and did you handle this piece? So I wanted to just hear about that from you, Anuradha.
Sure. Yeah, so when I first was given the music and I was listening to the song, to the understanding the lyrics, and then seeing how it was structured, because the music was already pre-prepared for us. Yes. Even though it was a Sringara Kirtana, it was so structured that it reminded me of a Pravesha Daruvu format, musically speaking. And except though I found that in each of the charanas, there was a lot of potential for elaboration, again,
Right.
in the way the music was set up. So, but which is atypical of a Pravesha Daru in the Kuchipudi format. In the Kuchipudi format, it's mostly jatis and a narrative where the Naika self introduces herself and all of her attributes. So this was kind of a mix between the two. And so I found myself moving from becoming Alamelu Manga and introducing her, as well as moving into a narrative style where I'm describing her and describing all of the different ways she is portrayed through the beautiful poetry. And you know, the whole song shows through the different charanas the different facets of Alamelu Manga's relationship. I mean, even though the main Pallavi very clearly talks about how skilled she is and how she pleases Lord Venkateshwara in all possible ways, but then each of the charanas provides an opportunity to show different aspects of Alamelu Manga's attributes. And because of the sancharis that were possible, because of the way the music was rendered, I was able to delve deeper into her. And she, for me, was a Praudanaika. For me, she was a woman very self-possessed, very confident. At the same time, there was a gentleness, and there was this her ability to, there's a softness to her despite her supreme confidence. There, you know, minnaga matladinu, that softness with which she was able to deal with him. And also Garavinci shows the indulgence. So she indulged him, she also pleased him, she also was erotic, she was also soft. So it lent itself to depict her in all these different ways.
Yes, thank you. That's so beautiful. Each and every song. I mean, it never ceases to amaze me as to the range of possibilities in an Annamacharya song. And Anuradha Jonalgata ma'am knows very well. We used to discuss it endlessly when she was my PhD guide and I was working on my doctoral thesis on Annamacharya. So these possibilities are never ending almost in Annamacharya. And I'd like to ask Srikant ji. Now, his song is so very different, even though it is a Sanskrit composition. It is so very different from the song that Praveen ji is handling. Deva Devottama is a song on Lord Rama. And I wanted to ask you, it's a eulogy of Lord Rama in Sanskrit. And you are a great Rama devotee. We all know that you've done your, festival on Rama, the whole series of the male dancer festival. And did you find this composition any different in its content and its context as compared to the multiple Rama compositions that you have already done, and you have already seen all the other, so many male practitioners perform? What was the unique feature for you for this particular Rama composition?
Namaskaram to everyone. Yes, indeed, I take it as a blessing from Sampada and Anupama, because when there are so many compositions, why should I get a piece on Lord Rama when I just celebrated a month-long 31 days of Vivare Ramarasam with 31 male dancers around the world doing 31 different pieces on Rama. And so many composers, so many languages, and so many interpretations. Yes. I really feel this is, and I didn't personally dance in that festival because I was curating the whole thing. So I think it's Rama's will that I should get one on himself. And
I should be very honest, I really did not remember the Vivare Ramarasam festival at all when I thought of you for this song. It just happened. I don't know how it just happened. So yes, please go ahead.
It is such a divine coincidence, honestly. As far as your question is concerned, yes, it is very, very different because you see Rama as Kalyana Rama, or like, one of the episodes is probably narrated in a particular piece. This particular one is very different because it talks about the different relationships or bandhavyas that Lord Rama had or shared with different people during his lifetime, which is a very, very different thing. Like, it's with his father Dasharatha, with his father-in-law Janaka, with Sita, Kausalya, with his siblings Lakshmana, Shatrughna and Bharata, and with Vibhishana and Sugriva and Ravana. Every single character is mentioned in this. So this is, to start with, I can say, like, this can be performed the way it's beautifully composed by Swetha ji. It's a brisk invocatory piece with a lot of jatis, and I was almost on the verge of, like, shifting myself to Kuchipudi because it's so beautiful, and I had to control myself and say, like, hey, Srikant, you're a Bharatanatyam dancer, and like remember that, and then like set it. Such a beautiful piece, but at the same time, this is something that can be performed in the place of a Varnam. Something like our Swati Tirunal's Bhavyami Raghuramam, this can be elaborated to 30 to 40 minutes. That is, as far as the lyrics are concerned, the challenging part or the fascinating part is that there are these different relationships, like this father-in-law, son-in-law.
I think I'll come back to the relationships. I have a specific question on the relationships.
You have a specific question?
Yes.
Okay.
So how is it different from the other compositions? You can tell us that.
It's as simple as that, right? This doesn't talk about Rama as a person. This is this is connected to Rama with Kausalya, or Rama with Sita, or Rama with Ravana, or all those things. So it's very different that way, I feel.
Great, thank you for that. And we have Anuradha ma'am doing a piece on Lakshmi. Now there aren't too many pieces which directly address goddess Lakshmi. Rather, we have multiple pieces on Alamelu Manga. But we have Jayalakshmi, Varalakshmi, which is a very famous composition. But this particular piece on Lakshmi is very interesting for multiple reasons. One, because even though it says Ettare Haratulu, we cannot assume that it's a Harati song, because it's primarily a description of goddess Lakshmi in different facets. So my first question was, even though it is a complete description of Lakshmi, what was your approach to the idea of this is the Lakshmi who needs to be, revered or eulogized? So through the Kuchipudi idiom, how did you approach this idea? And of course, in the next question, I will be asking you about those intricate, usages of words that are there in the song. But for Kuchipudi, how suitable did you think this song was, and how did you approach it as a eulogy?
Thank you, Sampada, and also thanks to Anupama for having given this opportunity to explore yet another Annamaya Sankirtana. In fact, it's very interesting to see others talking about how they approached it. Like, one is saying that it's like a Daru and it can be a Padavarnam. Here I was looking at it as a Sankirtana, and also want to bring out as a Padam or a Kirtana, the inner meaning of the entire thing of the song. In fact, though he says in the first Charanam and the Pallavi itself, we can see that Ettare Aratulu Ime Kintulara. And then Alamelumanga, he addresses her as Alamelumanga only. The attributes are all of Lakshmi. Finally, come to this. So I created a kind of a context, as is our in Kuchipudi, we create a context for it, and then try to explore it. So I tried to create a context of she coming along with Venkateshwara, and then and people coming and looking at them and trying to, look at the beauty of these people. And then the Sakhi is so overwhelmed by seeing all this, they want to take off the Arati. Generally Arati is taken off to evade the evil eye and things like that. So that's where I started. finally it also culminates with that. But it's a very, very interesting one to explore because many layered. The meaning is so much layered
Yes.
that you
Yes.
can go much deeper into it.
Yes.
In fact, if at all, for the time constraint,
Yes.
it can go on for half an hour
Yes.
almost, because
Oh,
those
yes.
layers are many. So my approach was that, trying to create a context and also explore each meaning of it, because each line has a different kind of a meaning. So since you are trying, you will come for the back to that particular question. Probably I will explain there
Yes.
how I
Yes.
approach to some of the lines there. So, but here I was looking at generally Annamacharya. I mean, Alamelu Manga is one of the concerts of Venkateshwara, but here she becomes everything. I mean, she becomes Lakshmi, she becomes Bhudevi, Sridevi, everything together is Alamelu Manga. That's what Annamacharya says in that. So I enjoyed doing it. In fact, it's almost, coming back into performance only when my Guru Shobha Naidu garu, when we lost her and had an anniversary, as a tribute to her, I participated in the anniversary then dancing. That was last year. But last 4 or 5 years, I've been not dancing or performing at all, because, but for Anupama, that, this time I'm somehow compelled to come in here. I hope.
Thank you, madam.
And we are so happy that we were able to compel you to come back to performance.
Thanks to Anupama, because Anupama has a special place. She's my first research scholar, my first doctorate. So she has a very, very special relationship.
Yeah, and I never let her forget it. So thank you.
Thanks,
Anu
madam.
ma'am.
It means a lot to us. Thank you.
Priya ma'am, I wanted to, the complexity of Anuradha ma'am's song is of a different quality. And the complexity of the song that you have worked on is of a completely different quality altogether. But my first question is, being one of the prime disciples of Kalanidhi Mami, and you are very known for your delineation of Padams and Javalis, the Kshetraya and Javali compositions. What was your experience with Annamaya Padabhinayam? Because the methodology is very different. What Kshetraya does and what Annamacharya does, they are worlds apart. So I just wanted to get that from you first. Priya ma'am, you're muted.
Namaskaram to everybody. Very, very happy to be a part of this. Of course, every poet is different. And in Abhinaya for dance, Kshetraya is a very important poet. I have done a few Annamaya compositions, and the thing is, the approach of every poet is different, and what you see, the number of words in a line, the way the line is constructed in Annamacharya Kirtanas is so different from Kshetraya. And very different from, say, even Sharangapani. And of course, Javali, there is no, though the pace of Annamacharya Kritis are probably faster and more like a Javali than a Padam. I don't know if because, and the other thing is, the emotions that are described, at least in the compositions that I have come through in the Sringara compositions, very, very subtle. I mean, it's the strands are very difficult to catch. Like there is one Annamacharya composition that I have done, that Alugaka Kutami, is that one?
Yes.
It's a very unusual situation, and it's very difficult to actually bring it to life, to visualize it. It's something that you will understand as a concept, and when you read it and when you hear it, you can enjoy it. but to actually translate it visually is very challenging. And I think because of the subtlety of the ideas, and even this composition, apparently it looks very simple. But the way the way he writes and the way the complexities are embedded in the composition, to understand it and at the same time visualize it without complicating it, because our medium is very different. When you write poetry or when you hear poetry, it's very different, isn't it? The language is, the written language and the oral language is very different. Visually, the language, when you portray it, you have to be careful and you have to be able to get through the intention of the poet without confusing the audience. So it was very challenging, yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. So, Venku, I wanted to ask you, he is known for his crisp, nritta and his body movements, which are so sculpturous. And the song we gave him actually is very challenging because that is a deity which nobody knows about. It is Veligoti, Krishna is an unknown deity. He's not the deity of Kshetrayas, Muvagopala, or Sarangapanis, Venugopala. Actually, nobody really knows anything about the Sthala Purana of that particular deity that we gave him. And the song Kevala Krishnavatara Keshava is complex in the way it has been worded also on multiple levels. So, Venku, just tell us about, how did you adapt this song for Kuchipudi? It's completely, a deity who's the favorite of Kuchipudi, Krishnudu. So he is the beloved deity of Kuchipudi anyway. So as somebody who has worked so much in, Bhama Kalapam and Siddhendra Yogis, you have seen Krishna on so many levels. So how did you, handle this piece, and how did the Tarangam approach influence you or anything? So, Koncham, just tell us about that.
First of all, ఈ మంచి ఆపర్చునిటీ ఇచ్చినందుకు సంపదాకి, దీనబాబు గారికి, నీకు ఎస్పెషల్లీ థ్యాంక్స్ చెప్పాలి. ఆఫ్టర్ లాంగ్ టైం, ఇందాక అను మ్యామ్ చెప్పినట్టుగా ఆల్మోస్ట్ నేను కూడా 3 years అయిపోయింది. పాండమిక్ బిఫోర్ స్టార్టింగ్ 1 year చేసుకుంటే, పాండమిక్ 2 years, 3 years no performances కదా యాక్చువల్ గా.
Lot of people are waiting for your to watch your performance.
నేను చెయ్యరన్నా కానీ బలవంతంగా నన్ను పూజ చేసి తీసుకొచ్చారు. ఫస్ట్ ఆఫ్ ఆల్, ఓకే, ఇంత మంచి సాంగ్ ఇచ్చినందుకు చాలా థ్యాంక్స్. ఈ సాంగ్ సెలెక్ట్ చేసి నాకు ఇచ్చినందుకు. అండ్ అంటే ఇప్పటిదాకా మీరు నన్ను క్వశ్చన్స్ అడిగారు కదా, నాకు ఒక క్వశ్చన్ ఉంది. ఇందాక నుంచి వెయిట్ చేస్తున్నాను, ఎప్పుడు టైం వస్తుంది అడగాలి.
అచ్చా, మీరు అడుగుతారా? ఓకే, చెప్పండి.
అంటే పర్టికులర్ గా ఈ సాంగ్ వీళ్ళకి ఇవ్వాలి అని ఎలా మీరు థింక్ చేశారు? ఎలా సెలెక్ట్ చేసి ఆ సాంగ్సే మాకు అంటే ఇవ్వటం జరిగింది? అంటే దాని వెనకాల బ్యాక్గ్రౌండ్ ఏదన్నా మీరు థింక్ చేశారా? వీళ్ళకి ఈ సాంగ్ బాగుంటుంది, మేబీ వీళ్ళకి ఈ సాంగ్, అంటే మేము ప్రీవియస్ చేసిన వర్క్స్ చూసి ఓకే వీళ్ళు దీని మీద వర్క్ చేశారు కాబట్టి అలా ఏమన్నా చూసి ఇచ్చారా? ఎలా, హౌ?
So Venku is asking me a question in return and saying, how have I selected the compositions for that particular artist? So I will tell you very shortly, Venku. First, నువ్వు చెప్పు, నువ్వు అసలు ఎలా హ్యాండిల్ చేసావో దాన్ని నువ్వు చెప్తే తర్వాత నేను చెప్తాను. After you tell me the answer, then I will tell you how I have selected which song for which artist.
బేసికల్ అంత వీళ్ళందరూ గొప్ప, అంటే
మ్యూట్ అయింది వెంకు. యా,
సో వాళ్ళతో కంపేర్ చేస్తే థింక్ చేసేంత కెపాసిటీ నాకు లేదు. బట్ కానీ ఏదైనా ఒక సాంగ్ తీసుకున్నప్పుడు, కంపోజింగ్ కి వెళ్ళాలి అనుకున్నప్పుడు, అంటే నేను చూసిన నా ఎక్స్పీరియన్స్, నేను నా పెద్దలను చూసినప్పుడు నాకున్న ఇంపాక్ట్, ఫస్ట్ నాకు పడ్డ ఇంపాక్ట్ ఎవరి దగ్గర నుంచి అంటే, మాస్టర్ గారిని నేను 82, 84 ఆ టైంలో మేము చాలా చిన్నపిల్లలం. వర్క్ షాప్ జరిగింది కూచిపూడిలో, టీచర్స్ ట్రైనింగ్ జరిగినప్పుడు మాస్టర్ గారి చేతిలో ఒక చిన్న హ్యాండ్ తో అప్పట్లో చిన్న టేప్ రికార్డర్, హ్యాండ్ తో పట్టుకునే టేప్ రికార్డర్ ఒకటి ఉండేది. సో మేము చాలా చిన్నపిల్లలు, మేము మార్నింగ్ ఎప్పుడున్నా ఎర్లీ మార్నింగ్ ఆయనకి బ్రేక్ఫాస్ట్ తీసుకెళ్ళినప్పుడు ఆయన కళాశాలలో పైన కూర్చుని ఓపెన్ ఎయిర్ లో అది చెవి దగ్గర పెట్టుకుని అంటే వింటూ ఉండేవారు. సో మాకు క్యూరియాసిటీ, ఆ చిన్నది ఏంటి, దాంట్లోంచి వాయిస్ వస్తుంది, ఆయన ఏం వింటున్నారు అనేది ఒక చాలా క్యూరియాసిటీ ఉండేది మాకు. సో అప్పుడు వచ్చి మేము బ్యాక్ ఇంటికి వచ్చి మా నాన్న అడిగినప్పుడు చెప్పారు, అది టేప్ రికార్డర్, దాంట్లో పాటలు వింటారు. సో పెదనాన్న ఏదో కొత్త ఐటమ్ కంపోజ్ చేస్తున్నారు, ఆ సాంగ్ వింటున్నారు. సో దట్ ఈస్ ద ఫస్ట్ నా మీద పడ్డ ఇంపాక్ట్. ఓకే, కంపోజ్ చేయాలి అంటే ఆ సాంగ్ ని మనం ఫస్ట్ వినాలి అనేది నాకు, అంటే నేను చాలా చిన్నవాడిని, నాకు తెలిసిన ఒక పాయింట్, నేర్చుకున్న పాయింట్. సో మీరు సాంగ్ పంపించగానే ఫస్ట్ నేను అసలు నేను చేయనన్నాను. ఆ సాంగ్ విన్న తర్వాత అసలు చెయ్యాలనుకోలేదు. ఎందుకు అంటే 3 years అయిపోయింది, ఇప్పుడు ఈ సాంగ్ చేసి అమ్మా అని. బట్ కానీ లేదు, చెయ్యన్నప్పుడు ఆల్మోస్ట్ నేను ఓపెన్ గా చెబుతున్నాను, నేను ఒక 1 month అయితే నేను పడుకుని నిద్రపోతున్నప్పుడు కూడా పక్కన పెట్టి ఆ సాంగ్ ని రన్ చేశాను. ఎందుకు అంటే ఫస్ట్ ఆఫ్ ఆల్ ఆ సాంగ్ నీకు ఒక వే చూపిస్తుంది. వింటుండగా మనకి తెలియకుండానే ఆ సాహిత్యము, ఆ సాంగ్ మన మీద ఇంపాక్ట్ పెట్టి, ఆ ఇంపాక్ట్ మన ఒక వే తీసుకెళ్ళి నువ్వు ఎలా వెళ్ళాలి, ఈ సాంగ్ ని ఎలా తీసుకెళ్ళాలి అదే డైరెక్షన్స్ చూపిస్తుంది. సో ఆ డైరెక్షన్ చూపించడం కోసం నేను విన్నప్పుడు నాకు ఫస్ట్ వచ్చిన థాట్ ఏంటి అంటే, ఒక స్టెప్ నా ఊహలోకి, ఓకే ఒక పర్టికులర్ ఒక లైన్ దగ్గర, ఇక్కడ ఈ స్టెప్ చేస్తే చాలా బాగుంటుంది కదా. సో ఆ స్టెప్ పట్టుకుని నేను బిల్డ్ చేసుకుంటూ వెళ్ళాను. అంటే స్ట్రక్చర్, ద వే ఆఫ్ మై కంపోజింగ్, అంటే నా థాట్ ప్రాసెస్ ఏంటి అంటే, నాకు వింటుండగా ఒక ఊహ వస్తుంది, ఒక ఇమాజిన్, ఓకే ఇక్కడ ఈ స్టెప్ ఇలా బాగుంటుంది కదా అని. సో దాన్ని బేస్ చేసుకుని ఎంటైర్ థ్రెడ్ అంతా నేను చేసుకుంటూ వస్తాను. సో అలా చేసినప్పుడు కేవల కృష్ణావతార కేశవ, మనం ఈ సాంగ్ ని మనం బాగా అబ్జర్వ్ చేస్తే ఆల్మోస్ట్ కా అనే వర్డ్ చాలా ఎక్కువ సార్లు యూజ్ చేస్తాం.
Especially Vidhya Akshara Prasa is primarily all ka. Yes.
All ka. Keki Pinchavatara, Keki Vahana. Yes. I don't know why he used ka letter particularly. Ka means, ka అనేది ఏంటి అంటే, యాజ్ ఏ devotee దీనిగా మనం, అంటే మనకున్న ఆధ్యాత్మిక పరంలో కా అనేది బ్రహ్మ పదార్థం.
అవును.
సో కా లెటర్ ఈజ్ ద మీనింగ్ ఆఫ్ బ్రహ్మ. సో ఎందుకని కేవల కృష్ణావతార, అన్ని అవతారాలు ఉండగా ఐఎమ్ జస్ట్ పర్టికులర్లీ మెన్షన్ కేవల కృష్ణ. మనకు మత్స్య, కూర్మ, వరాహ, వామన అన్ని వదిలేశారు, కేవల కృష్ణ అన్నారు. ఎందుకు అంటే కృష్ణుడు బై బర్త్ పుట్టడంతోనే చెప్పాడు నేనే బ్రహ్మని అని. మిగతా రామ, వామన, పరశురామ వీళ్ళందరికీ డౌట్ ఉంది. వాళ్ళ గురువులు వచ్చి కాదురా నువ్వు సాక్షాత్ విష్ణు అని చెబితే గానీ వాళ్ళకి తెలియలేదు. ఈవెన్ రామా ఆల్సో. బట్ కృష్ణకి అలా ఏం లేదు, ఆయన పుడుతూనే చెప్పాడు నేనే బ్రహ్మని అని చెప్పాడు.
The only avatar which came with full awareness that he is
full awareness
Brahman. Yes.
సో అది నాకు, అంటే ఆ పర్టికులర్ గా అన్నాను కదా, కా అనేది ఎందుకు ఆయన ఎక్కువ యూజ్ చేశాడని నేను థింక్ చేయటం మొదలెట్టినప్పుడు, ఓకే కా ఈజ్ ఈక్వల్ టు బ్రహ్మ. సో అదే మన భామా కలాపంలో కలాపం అని పెట్టడానికి కూడా అదే అర్థం, బ్రహ్మ గురించి ఆలాపన చేసేదే కలాపం. సో నాకు అవన్నీ ఇన్స్పిరేషన్. ఓకే దెన్ ఐ స్టార్టెడ్ దశావతారాల మధ్యలో ఇంట్రడ్యూస్ చేసుకుంటూ కృష్ణ.
చూసాను, I saw that. Yes, that was very nice, very nice, very interesting. Concept of bringing in the Parabrahman aspect of Krishna here, Venku. And my question is to Swetha next. So I know that these are primarily not pieces which are, style specific as such. But when we both were discussing the musical context, we did kind of think that, okay, this piece I think we will, give to a Bharatanatyam practitioner and this to a Kuchipudi practitioner. So we had that kind of, except for the Abhinaya pieces, but especially those pieces which had Nritta in it or which had Jatis in it, we did think about, which is more suitable for Bharatanatyam and which is more suitable for Kuchipudi. So tell us a little about that process. Like, did you think it was an effective demarcation? Do you think we were able to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I go with you, Anupama garu. But when it comes to composing music for dance,
Yeah.
see, I only go by the rasa or the literature. See, here
Yeah.
Bharatanatyam and Kuchipudi is doesn't mean anything to me, actually, to be frank. See, whether it is
I can
Kuchipudi or
understand.
Bharatanatyam. So if I put in a wrong ragam for that particular kind of literature,
Yes.
so so what I would say is raga and rasa is very important for me when I sit to
Right.
compose anything. అంటే
Yes.
దో మీరు ఎక్స్ప్లెయిన్ చేసినా కూడా
అవును.
ఇది భరతనాట్యంకి
అవును.
ఇది కూచిపూడి అనుకున్నా కూడా బట్ వెన్ ఐ
Yes.
సిట్ ఫర్ కంపోజిషన్ అవేవి నాకు ఎవ్రీథింగ్ విల్ డిసపియర్ సి ఓన్లీ
Right.
ది రాగం అండ్ ది లిటరేచర్ సో వెదర్ ఇట్ ఇస్ సూటింగ్ దట్ పర్టిక్యులర్
Yes.
that especially
Actually, it is only the speeds that we later,
exactly
kind of
the
tone
speed
down for Bharatanatyam.
speed can always
Yes.
be manipulated accordingly so manam
Yes.
ela anukunte the pace of the song can always of course there is
Right.
also a limitation to it so we cannot bring
Yes.
it down too slow or cannot raise it
Yes.
up
Yes.
really
That the Sahityam will kind of decide, I guess. Yes.
exactly sahityam is already set and it always gives you a path to just start from where
Right.
it is. From that point of literature we try to pick up the next
Correct.
step. This is what
Yes.
is I think when I'm composing.
True.
Yeah.
True. Nice, interesting. So, I have actually, to make this even more lively, I wanted to ask Praveenji and Srikantji simultaneously 2 questions. So, one is that, in Praveenji's song, there are some very strange usages in Sanskrit, which, you don't really find in all the Sanskrit compositions of some of the other poets, like Andaja Gamana, for example. That phrase, or like a phrase bhuvana purna guna, or a phrase say like nija bhava bhavana tita. So these are visually very, andajagamana is still doable, but some of these phrases are visually very difficult to interpret. So that is one aspect. One after the other you can go. And for Srikantji, I simultaneously had a question that when we were talking about all the hastas, the bandhavyas or the relationships, to visualize, brother-in-law, father-in-law, mother-in-law, and all this. So did you have to look at the Abhinadarpana, look at bandhavya hastas, look at what was your methodology in picking up how do you do hasta abhinaya to bring out all these various relationships? So these were 2 things. So yes, Praveenji and Srikantji. Praveenji can go first.
Yes, like you said, there were many words which for me I was hearing it for the first time.
Yes.
In fact, even this Pandari Ramana, I was in a dilemma like which is it?
Whether it is the Pandaripur.
Is
Yes.
it that one or Pandari Ramana? But then later, like I think your explanation kind of helped with few meanings to particularly seeing what it is. Andajagamana also, I was just wondering like how do you portray an Andajagamana as such? But then later clearing it out to know that one who is going all around the world with the Garuda Vahana as an eagle, traveling everywhere to all the 3 lokas was there. But one, like you said, was interesting for me was to show this Bhuvana Purna Guna.
Purna Guna, yes.
Yeah, it says Bhuvana Purna Gavan, but one who is very auspicious to the whole world. Because sometimes, like I said, sometimes showing these hastas, I don't know how much of it can communicate. Like just now you're asking Srikant that father-in-law, brother-in-law, because honestly,
Yes.
as a dancer, sometimes I myself, I'm speaking for myself, I really don't know the hastas for brother-in-law, sister-in-law, all those things. Even sometimes we wonder, like when somebody else is doing, does it really convey those things? So it's very important for us to know how sometimes the simpler hastas can make more communicative rather than trying to fit in too many hastas to that as such. Like I said, this Bhuvana Purnagana, one who is doing auspicious to the whole world. So that would rather, the best way would sometimes would just be is like showing a blessing to the whole space world, rather communicating it rather than trying to see what hasta works more. So I always have believed sometimes lesser the better,
Right.
so that it kind of communicates. First, I think we need to communicate first what we are doing first, because sometimes if we are not sure of what hasta we ourselves are doing it, then it's difficult for somebody else to reach it out. So I've kept it to the minimalistic so that it can reach to anybody, to whatever level people are watching anything as such.
Correct. Yes, and that's very evident even in the way you have handled the jatis and the nritta portions, where you have actually enunciated only that which you think was most effective. So I think that's very interesting,
Yeah, when Jati, like Srikant was saying, the moment I heard it sounded so much like Kuchipudi Jatis. They were like, "Dhalan kutakadi kutakatadi ginnato." Like for us in the Varnam, when we do like a second half, the Tirmanams, they were all like that.
You're right.
So instead of doing all adus, then it might look like too crowded.
Crowded.
So
Yes.
I rather prefer to enhance on few kanakus,
Right.
and so that it can bring out the
It
beauty
was
of
it was
the
beautiful, the
Tirmanams
impact. It was
Yeah.
very impactful for the viewers. I just wanted to tell you that phrases that we like me and Praveenji were just discussing, like andaja gamana. These are very, very typical to Annamacharya, because my guru Uma Ramarao ji always used to call him a quiz master, because Annamacharya never says anything directly. Even when he talks about the Dashawataras, he doesn't say Matsya Kurma Varaha. There are very few songs in which he actually mentions the name of the avatara. He will always come in a very convoluted manner, and we have to figure out everything. Basically, that is his technique. So when you say Anda Ja Gamana, it took us some time to understand that he's talking about one who rides on the one who is born from the egg, or the Anda Ja, one who is born from the egg. So instead of Anda Ja Gamana. So that is a typical methodology of Annamacharya. Srikanji, yes, about the hastas.
Yeah, I just wanted to start on a lighter note. What Praveen was saying, it wasn't even Dalankutakadikutakadikadatam for me. It was Dalankutakadikadatam. It was like a firecrackers, like Diwali happening like for 2 months at my place. Like every day when I practice, everyone like look at me, and like incidentally, my wife is also a dancer, so they all look at me like, are you like actually doing Bharatanatyam? So yeah. So the different Bandhavya hastas. Yes, Bharatanatyam is an idiom where it's been there for a long period of time. That different dancers tried out different things, and experimentation going on even now. People come up with new set of adus, people come up with new way of interpreting a particular thing.
Right.
So you can always come up with, for example, if I have to say like Janaka, I don't have to necessarily like find a hastam that would suit father-in-law. I can say Sita's father. I can just go by that. As Praveen says, I think at times you have to like make it easier for the public to sort of journey with you, rather than like bringing all new things. In one particular composition, maybe you can bring in 2 or 3 new things. That way it gets registered, number one. And more so in this particular project, because this is for archival, this is for generations to come and like study or like understand. I thought I should take the trouble of like talking to people, or like reading texts, and then get some, at least a couple of hastas new. I have used a couple of new hastas. It was I don't know if I'm allowed to mention the school name. It is a big, as you know, we have different Banis and Bharatanatyam, different schools of thought. And this particular school is known for its theory and practical both. So I thought this dancer would be the best person. So I approached this person. He's a senior dancer again. So to find out what hasta would they use to denote, to show son-in-law or something like that. So he thought for a while, and he said, can I just get back to you? And he didn't answer me for the next 2 days. I thought, what's happening? I need to progress. And I was equally worried about Anupama ji. It's like, every time I get a text from her, I'm like, okay, like she's sort of like make sure you're like on track throughout. So finally I called him back, and then poor guy, he did a lot of research and came up with, he said like, Anna, this is the maximum that I could like, like find out. And he got me a beautiful hasta for son-in-law, and father-in-law, he gave me like a big one, like it's like the Kudiyatam thing. Overnight, you'll have to show for father-in-law. I said, I'm not going to use this. I'm going to use the simple one. I'll just like, like show it to you. It's actually Jamata. It is like son-in-law is like Shikaram and Padma Kosham.
Yeah. Right.
It's very different. And see, for a layman, for an uninitiated audience, it might look strange and they may not be able to understand, but it is also our responsibility to like here and there, like sort of intersperse these important aspects, so that it gets part of the vocabulary.
And I think you've also used the Rama, Lakshmana, Bharata, Shatrughna hastas also, I think. In some of the places you have,
right.
You have incorporated.
So again, this was again like, like we all do Lakshmana like this in Bharatanatyam. And I didn't know like whether the same thing is applied for Bharata and Shatrughna or something else to be done. So I asked again another Bharatanatyam dancer, and he didn't have an answer, obviously. I asked many people, they didn't know. They just said like, we do only this. So casually, like, I was just talking to my wife Ashwati, and she said like, in Mohiniyattam, we do like the first brother, the second brother, and the third brother.
Third brother, yes.
Way of interpreting brothers. So I thought, okay, if somebody is going to scold me, it's okay. If somebody is going to identify it's like, stolen from Mohiniyattam, well, that's fine. But, it does convey very clearly it is second, third, and the fourth one. For the first brother, second brother, and the third brother. I thought these are like, really cute hastas, which can be like, incorporated into Bharatanatyam. Yes.
Absolutely. Yes. So that's what was very interesting, because of so many relationships that are mentioned in that particular song. It becomes very challenging to, think of new ways to bring out each of these relationships. And I think for the students of dance who are watching this panel discussion also, it's important for you to know that there is an entire section in the Abhinaya Darpanam called the Bandhavya Hastas, where, you look at all the different relationships. You have the Sushru Hasta, you have the father-in-law, you have the mother-in-law, you have the husband. And some of the hastas that we actually do, like the Tali and the Shikara for the husband and wife, are actually part of the Bandhavya Hastas of Abhinaya Darpana. And the Bharatarnavam and the other, there are many texts which talk about varied hastas. So maybe, you could take a look to increase the vocabulary of dance. And it's not like Bharatanatyam or Kuchipudi or anything like that. So I think just for those reasons, you could, expand on it. So yeah, thank you, Srikantji. Now, in a similar fashion, I want to, talk with Vidhya ji and Anuradha Jonalgada ma'am. So Vidhya ji, there are, in both your songs, there are specific phrases of description. So while Vidhya ji's song has nature motifs in connection with Alamelumanga and, nature similes and metaphors, in Anuradha ma'am's song, you have some very philosophical terms also that are used, along with the beautiful, aspects. Like, for example, just to give the audience something interesting to go with. So you have a phrase in Anuradha ma'am's song which says, Satamaina Kungu Paidi. Now, this is not a term you hear at all in any poet, nor do you hear a term like Atma Bhava Mula Keelu Bomma. So this is also a very, very philosophical idea that you get. And in Vidhya ji's song, there is continuous simile happening in comparison with the body and the thought and the temperament of Alamelumanga. So if you could tell us, what was your, how did you approach this? Vidhya ji, we can start with you. This comparison, this constant comparison.
Yeah, like I said in the previous response as well, right? So this for me was the first thing that struck me, the very clear.
And also, which was your most favorite of the comparisons? I want to know that also. Which one you really enjoyed, working on?
For sure. I'm trying to remember now.
You want me to prompt you with a song? Yeah, I have the song also in front of me. Yeah.
I'm going to open it up, but in the meantime, so I think the idea of nature that he's strung through the composition is it jumps at you. It just screams at you right away, right? So that those motifs are so beautifully embedded in the composition. So it's hard to miss, first of all. And I think for me, and this is where the brilliance of Swetha's composing as well came in, because it is set in Venkatachalapathi, but which also I'm curious about. I want to know why, and then there is the juxtaposition of the Kir Kalam and Mel Kalam, right? So it is it's sort of the lower tempo and so it goes. There is this luxuriating in the slow tempo, and then you are sort of getting into it and enjoying it, and she's reveling in this Sringara, and then suddenly the tempo picks up. In each charanam this happens, right? So we go back and forth, and when we go back to Atanu, it sort of comes back to this idea of, it's like a sigh almost. Every time we come back to the Pallavi, it felt like a sigh, right? After the sped up nature of fervor, and it's almost like a fever in that higher speed. And so the similes, therefore, again, it was almost building up like a crescendo, like in an orchestra, when you start with a certain note and then you build all the way up to this crescendo. And that's how this composition fell through the charanams for me, in the motives, right? And to answer your question, what is my favorite one? I think it was, we talk of the moon in the face, and I'm looking at the composition. I've opened it up, and couple of them. One is that, we never talk of the breath. The sandalwood is often, anoints the body to cool the body, but to talk of it as her breath, that her breath is like that. And the other was the beads of sweat. The beads of sweat that, what does he talk about?
Crystal clear water, he says.
Yes.
Talks about crystal clear. So I think the audience also needs to know that when you say the word panniru in the context of Annamacharya, it is not rose water. It's cool water. It's crystal cold water. So when in the context of Annamacharya, panniru is not rose water. So that is why I have not used the term rose water in the transcreation, and I've used the term crystal clear water. Yes.
Yeah, because see, here it is, when you think of sweat, it's heat. It's built up, heat within the body that causes that sweat. But here he's talking about it, the cool, fragrant water, right? So that contrast itself was beautiful to visualize. So I think, I hope I've answered your question.
Of course, we can go on endlessly about, these compositions are so beautiful. We can go on endlessly about it.
And of course, just like everyone else expressed, that's one of the reasons, main reason that I want to thank you for actually calling me.
It's our pleasure, our honor.
Gorgeous composition.
Anu ma'am.
Yeah, in fact, though you're talking about her being compared to or called as Lakshmi, here the main crux of this particular composition was the relationship between Venkateshwara and Alimailumanga, and what she is to him. Okay, that's majorly the crux of it. That's what I understood out of that.
Absolutely.
In fact, when we are talking about in the first charana itself, it says, Sarileni Devani Samsara Palamu. She is the Samsara Phala, the physical manifestation of Sarileni Devud. That and Paramatma ko Atma Bhavamula Keelubamma. She said she's described as Keelubamma is a very, very typical Telugu word. I mean, we have several in this composition. Typical Vittu, Keelu Bomma,
Acha Telugu words, yes.
Acha Telugu words are all there.
Yes.
Where Keelu Bomma is generally used for something which actually dances to the tunes of the one who holds
The one
it.
who has
But
who's given
here
a key.
he says, Paramatma ko Atma Bhavamula Keelu Bomma. She is the one who would understand the Atma Bhava of that Paramatma and then go accordingly. She would do things according to him. And then she's also described as a Singaramula Vittu. She's Sirulaku Puttinillu. She is addressed for the prosperity. And then Singaramula Vittu. Vittu is the seed. So from that particular seed, everything comes out. The huge tree or the phala of it comes out from that seed. So these are very beautiful things that he talked in this particular composition. But particularly one thing that has struck me is that Sarasapu Samudramu.
Yes.
Satamaina Kongupaidi. That's where this
Kongupaidi.
comes in.
Beautiful. That's a beautiful
Sarasa
phrase.
Samudra. Samudra is ocean where it is very, very calm. At the outset of it, it's calm. I mean,
Yes.
there are waves coming out and going in, but outside it is calm. But once you go deeper into it, you would find
Yes.
the treasures. So that's where she is the Sarasapu Samudra. She is out at the outside. She won't probably look like she's that particular Naika who is Shringara, has that Shringara in her or anything like that. But you go deeper into it, it's there. But Singaramula Kongupaidi, I mean Sarasapu Samudramu, when she talks about Kongupaidi is Kongu. We talk about in Telugu, it is called as Kongu Bangaram.
Kongu Bangaram.
I tried looking into this, talking to several people about why is this particular expression of Kongupaidi used.
Right.
See, Kongupaidi is something which comes handy whenever you are in need. Okay.
Exactly.
So for Venkateshwara, she is the one who would come. I mean, who is there within reach to help him out in anything. But here it is in the context of Sringara.
Yes.
So she's the Sarasa Samudra who has that kind of a treasure in her, and also. For him, she is the Kongupaidi. So she would be there for him for in this context. So that way, I think he also talks about in the last charana Avalani Valanide Alamelu.
Avalani Valani. Yes, she's everywhere, omnipresent.
Either side is Alamelu Manga. So here I was thinking that you have Sri Devi and Bhudevi. Because right from the beginning he says Hari Yuramuna. Hariyuramu pai sommu.
Hariyuramu pai sommu yurata gattina tali. Yeah, that's typical Annamacharya's usage.
Gattin tali is a wedded wife. So she's there on his ura. But then again here it says Avalani Ivalani de Alameelu Manga. So you have
everywhere basically.
Generally we depict Venkateshwara as having two wives this way and that way. But here this Sridevi and Bhudevi, whoever are the wives that we are talking about, put together is Alameelu Manga. And within, inside Venkateshwara, Avala, Ivala can be either side or inside and
outside. Exactly.
For him, she is the one. Okay. Alameelu Manga is the one. So inside him and outside everywhere, it is Alameelu Manga who's the most dear to him. So that's how several beautiful words of Telugu have come into this, fortunately.
Exactly.
And, especially when it was Keelu Bomma, generally in common parlance, we use it in a very lighter fashion. But here he uses it in such a beautiful context that, it really took some time for me to understand this entire lyric. Why is that he used this in this particular context? So I also try to use certain hastas wherein try to say that they are samana. Here he says in the Pallavi itself that she is the most befitting wife of Venkateshwara. So she is the samana. She fits very well.
Him perfectly.
Fits him very well in every context as such. So that's where
but my favorite is that Paramatmako Atma Bhavamula Geelubamma.
Yes. Yes. So yes, I hope the younger practitioners, dance students are listening to this whole discussion, because this was the reason why, we were very particular to have this panel discussion, because it is not just about watching these great, performers perform an exemplary song in a most beautiful manner. I think it is also about understanding the mind space, where they are coming from, how they visualize, how are they what they are. So I think this is very important for us to kind of grasp. And I think in that context, this panel discussion is extremely important. Now, in the similar way, I have two, similar concepts which I want to discuss with Priya ma'am and with Anuradha Nehruji. I think we are slowly coming to the end of this discussion, but I had both of them are dealing with two songs. One is almost in the present context, that is Anuradha Nehruji's song, where you're saying Mikkili Nerpari Alamelu Manga, she's there, she's so skilled, and she does this for Lord Venkateshwara. So there are descriptions like that. And on the other hand, you have the song which Priya ma'am is doing, which has an extremely convoluted time sequence, a time zone. It's about a dream which has happened, and it is about the present. So there is a continuous linking of the dream state, the past, the present, the Sakhi's idea, the Nayika's idea. So the time zones and the periods are really very twisted in that song. And Anuradhaji's is very apparent, but the lyric is very, it poses a great challenge to bring out. So these two particular aspects, I would like to know how you resolve them. Anuradhaji, you can start with me. You're muted.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I think from the way you've presented the two songs with different timelines, I got the easier deal here. So for me, you're right. I didn't have to deal with different time periods, as you said. It was more about the different aspects of Alamelu Manga and the different attributes that he gave to her in her relationship with him.
And also the very, very erotic connotations. So that also we want to hear from you.
It sets it up right in the Pallavi itself, right? Right on the top of the dance itself.
Absolutely.
It's very clear that she pleases her husband in all possible ways.
Yes.
And what are those possible ways is what is elaborated in the three charanams that follow. And so so for me, actually, I'm kind of curious as to why you presented me in opposition to Priyaji's piece in terms of timeline, because for me, timeline was never an issue. For me, it was all about what are the different ways she is erotically bound to him.
So the reason I did that was, this is very challenging from the point of view of context and content, and this is very challenging also from the point of view of context. So that was primarily the reason why I thought it will be interesting to see the contrasting ideas that emerge from this. Yes, Anuradha, please go on.
I think also the descriptions that the poet gives us helps set up the context for me to describe Alamelu Manga's relationship with him. Right. For example, like in the first charanam, he says Kannulane navvu navvi kantuni tappaka chuchi. So that itself shows how she uses it. It is erotic in a way, because she speaks through her eyes, just by eye contact, and also it shows how daring she is, because she can see him into his eyes. She has the confidence of her allure by looking at him directly. But at the same time, he contrasts it with saying, Minnaga matadi, sannalane yasarechi jankena bommalu vanchi. Yeah, so like it's so beautiful. He says she inflames his desire with surreptitious signs. So these are so there are innumerable descriptive phrases in the poetry that offers us as choreographers ideas on how, like it's so explicit in a way. It's not too implicit, at least in the poetry that I've been given, because the descriptions like this is easy for us to sort of start imagining how to visualize that. Like for the second charanam, it's more playful. Yeah, it's I think it's Sareku, right? Second charanam, Sareku chikkulu nokki.
Yeah, that's also a very typical, phrase.
Yeah, so it's she tweaks his cheeks playfully and sits by his sides. So that's the kind of informal relationship and the closeness she has. It's almost like, but at the same time, and towards the end of the piece, it's devotion. Like she's completely devoted to him. So I think in one piece I had to bring out all of these multiple different characteristic attributes of her, not necessarily in the Pravesha Darvu format, but in mixing the two as a Pravesha Darvu introducing herself, but also elaborating through a narrative style using Asaki.
Lovely, lovely. Priya ma'am. So first of all, the kind of language he uses and as you said, the metaphors, the situations, Annamaya is very, very visual, very descriptive, and it's almost like he's making you look through the camera at through his words. He is bringing something to an image like to life. It's like a cinematography, actually. Really, really. He's very descriptive and very detailed in the way he makes the situation come alive. Therefore, as Vidhya was saying, for us to find the space as a dancer, it's a big challenge. Correct. One of the things that what was interesting was since I don't speak Telugu, but from what I understood from you and when I went into the meaning, it's the deliberate way in which there is that it's left open as to whether it is Alamelu Manga who is doing it or whether the action is being performed by Venkateshwara. That is deliberately left open. And also, she's talking, the pieces when she's talking to her Sakhi, she says, did he dream about me? Or did he dream about me? Is that why that he hurried the moment it was daybreak, he came to see me? So it's, and why did she ask that? Because she feels that whatever she dreamt about, he must have dreamt about the same thing. And the beauty of it is, it's the meeting of minds. Yes. It's also, a certain, in a very, what do you say, sensitive way, she says, did our minds meet? Yes. Were we on the same plane? And also the mood with which he came, what was going on behind? What was the reason that he came like that? And the beauty of it also is
for me, it was not, it didn't have to be clear whether she's actually asking her Sakhi, and this is about the conversation she's having with the Sakhi at that moment, or she's reliving the experience when he came to see her, and then, or she's going into her dream. So it's actually, I mean, I felt that Annamacharya was giving you so much of, so many ways in which you look at the composition. But as I said earlier, I have to make sure that I don't confuse the audience. So the narrative has to be clear in my mind, but you just show glimpses, you know, of the different ways in which he imagined it, so that they are able to see a larger canvas while seeing a simple narrative. So I feel that it's a challenge to be able to give the space to an audience, give them triggers so that they're able to see beyond what you're giving them the space to look beyond what you are actually showing. I mean, I think time, as you said, it's a tool we use, but it's not a tool that we can use to confuse, but rather to understand and know how to use it to convey it to the audience, right?
Absolutely,
So what I
absolutely.
felt was important was the Sringara aspect. I mean, of course, for him, the way he describes the Sringaram, there is lyricism. There is a kind of a, you know, it's a very, it's like dance.
It's
You know,
buoyant,
the word
yes,
dance, very
yes.
buoyant, and and very descriptive. He tells you, and the carrying the Sringara along with the lyrics, the melody, and the bounce of the of his gait, right?
Yes.
Is really a challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And just for the audience, you know, the reason I asked this question also was because, you know, there's a Sakhi grammatical tool he uses in this song where when she's remembering, she says "Aku madachi ittunanta." That means I have given it.
Yeah,
that's what it means. And then he counters it by saying "Ayamulo antenanta." That is, he has done that.
yeah.
So this contrast is very, you know, difficult to resolve through the visual, and that is
and
the
also
beauty of the whole thing. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and
Priya.
also why he uses, I gave him the beetle leaf, I believe,
Yeah.
and he touched me in different places. Why does she use, you know, why is he using
Continuous
that
back
kind
and
of
forth.
juxtaposition? Yeah.
So that is what is beautiful, you know, about Annamacharya. And I think, yeah, before we close, I think I will pitch myself against Venkat and Venku, both of us, you know, as contemporaries. So I will talk a little about my song, and then I will ask him his song. You know, what I wanted to know, Venku, was the way you, I mean, I know that you and Raghava, both of you have choreographed a lot of pieces, you know, even Sanskrit compositions. You've done, you know, you've done ashtakams, you've done stotrams, you've done different Sanskrit kind of compositions. And in all of that, both of you have your typical, you know, brand of how you present the nritta and the choreography and everything. In this particular song, considering that, you know, this is of an unknown deity, and considering that there are so many, you know, phrases for which you have to deviate from your traditional methodology, the methodology that you always use, you will need to go a little away from that in order to be able to, you know, express this. So, you know, ela chesav, I just wanted to know that, and I will talk about my piece so that, you know, I can complement what he's saying there. So yes, Chappu Venku. Unmute చేయాలి.
డీవియేట్ అవటం అంటే అలా కాదు, అంటే పర్టికులర్ గా
No, deviate అంటే what I mean is you'll have to go a little extend చేసుకోవాల్సి వస్తుంది. Yes.
దీంట్లో నృత్య ఎక్కువ ఉంది, జతీస్ చాలా చాలా హై లెవెల్ జతీస్, పర్టికులర్ రేణుక
Prasad.
చాలా రేణుకా ప్రసాద్ చాలా హై లెవెల్ జతీస్ అన్ని కంపోజ్ చేశారు. ఒకటే ఏమైపోయిందంటే అంటే ఏదైనా ఎవరైనా వాళ్ళ ఓన్ ఇప్పుడు నేను ఉన్నాను అనుకో, నా జతి నేను రాసుకుంటే ఐ నో ద వేవ్ లెంగ్త్ హౌ ఇట్స్ గోస్, బట్ కంపోజింగ్ టు అదర్ పీపుల్ జతి ఇట్స్ డిఫికల్ట్. ఎందుకంటే ఐ డోంట్ నో రేణుక ఏ మూడ్ లో ఉన్నప్పుడు ఆ జతి రాశారో ఐ డోంట్ నో దట్. సో దానికోసం కొంచెం నేను చాలా, అందుకే ఫస్ట్ ఆఫ్ ఆల్ ఆ సాంగ్ వినగానే నేను చేయను అని ఎందుకన్నానంటే ఇట్స్ నాట్ పాసిబుల్. అంటే అందరూ అనుకుంటారు చాలా ఈజీ, ఆల్రెడీ వర్కౌట్ చేసేసి ఒక సాంగ్ రికార్డ్ చేసి ఇచ్చేసి దాన్ని కంపోజ్ చేయడం చాలా ఈజీ అనుకున్నాం. అదే చాలా హార్డ్. ఈజియెస్ట్ థింగ్ ఏంటంటే మనం ఓన్ గా కంపోజ్ చేసుకోవడం ఈజీ. సో అప్పుడు నేను కొంచెం అక్కడ నేను తీసుకున్న స్పేస్ ఏంటంటే లెట్ us డూ ఇట్ విత్ మిక్సింగ్. అంటే నేనేం చేశానంటే కొన్ని స్టెప్స్ చూసుకుంటే ఓల్డ్ ట్రెడిషన్ విత్ న్యూ.
I wanted you to say that. అవును, అందుకే I'm pulling you out of that. Okay. Yes.
రెగ్యులర్ గా వెళ్ళే వేలో కాకుండా మనం ఇప్పుడున్న జనరేషన్ కి రీచ్ అవ్వాలి. అండ్ సేమ్ టైం వాట్ ఈస్ మై రూట్స్ అనేది నేను చూపించుకోవాలి. కాబట్టి నేను కొన్ని స్టెప్స్ ఓల్డ్ టైప్ తీసుకుని, బట్ కొన్ని చూస్తే కొన్ని ఇవన్నీ ఓపెన్ గా చెబుతాను నేను. ఐ నో వేర్ ఫ్రమ్ ఆల్ దీస్ స్టెప్స్, దీస్ ఆల్ ఫ్రమ్ ద సచింగారి స్టెప్స్. సో ఈ టైప్ ఆఫ్ తైది ఇవన్నీ మనం అవన్నీ పెద్ద సత్యం గారి కంపోజిషన్ నుంచి అడాప్ట్ చేసుకున్నాం. సో నాకు తెలుసు కాబట్టి సో నేను అవి ఇవి పిక్ చేసి దాంట్లో మిక్స్ చేసి లెటర్స్ ఓకే రేణుక అంటే అది ఫినిష్ ఓకే తైది తగదా అది ఫ్రెండ్స్ లైక్ ఫ్లో లాగా వెళ్తుంది. ఓకే ఒకసారి ఇటు చేస్తాను, ఒకసారి ఇటు చేస్తాను, మూడోది ఎక్కడి నుంచి చేయను. నేను అప్పుడు థింక్ చేసింది ఓకే, ఒకటి ఓల్డ్ స్టైల్ ప్రహ్లాద్ శర్మ గారు, ఒకటి చిన్న సత్యం గారు, ఒకటి పెద్ద సత్యం గారు. ఓకే లెట్ us బ్రింగ్ ఆల్ ద పర్సన్స్, నాకు ఎవరు తెలుసో వాళ్ళందరినీ తీసుకొచ్చి ఇక్కడ పెట్టేసేసి
కూచిపూడి
కేరళ వాళ్ళు వండుతారు కదా అన్ని కూట్, కూట్ అని చెప్పి.
Interesting. So I wanted him to talk about, because I've seen the multiple influences that he has incorporated in the song. So that's interesting. And
that credit goes to Annaya.
Yes, of course, Raghava. Yes.
Compositions అన్నిట్లోనూ ఇది కనిపిస్తుంది. అంటే అన్నయ్య ఓల్డ్ ట్రెడిషన్ మాస్టర్ గారివి ప్లస్ దాంతో పాటు తను టిపికల్ హ్యాండ్స్ పెడతాడు అన్నయ్య, చాలా టిపికల్ గా ఉంటాయి. అవి ఎవరు అదే వన్ ఆఫ్ ఈ సిచ్యువేషన్ లో నేను అందరికి ఓపెన్ గా చెప్పదలుచుకుంది ఏంటంటే ఇప్పుడున్న జనరేషన్ లో అదే ఓపెన్ గా చెబుతాను యాజ్ అ సీనియర్ డాన్సర్ గా, అన్నయ్య లాగా థింక్ చేసే వాళ్ళు నేను ఎవరిని కొరియోగ్రాఫర్ చూడలేదు. He done lot of works, బట్ చాలా మంది తెలియకపోవచ్చు కానీ చాలా టిపికల్ వర్క్స్. సో అదే నేను మా అన్నయ్య స్టూడెంట్ ని, నేను అన్నయ్యతో కంపోజ్ చేయలేదు, సో నేను మా అన్నయ్య స్టూడెంట్ ని కాబట్టి ఆ క్రెడిట్ మా అన్నయ్యకి దొరుకుతుంది.
Totally. So just for the interest of the viewers watching, so the piece that I'm doing is called Veduka Kadavai Vidi Vadi Tirigevu Tummedaru. So whenever we talk about the Tummeda, or Tummeda as in the bee, and when we talk about the Chiluka or the parrot songs, even though technically in the volumes of Annamacharya, when we see, they are classified as Sringara Sankirtanas, they come under the Sringara Sankirtana category, but these songs are actually primarily tattvams, or they bring out the metaphysics of a particular of a certain concept. So that was why that was what I found very interesting. Actually, this is a song I've been working on for a very long time. So I thought, since I have to also I'll be performing as a part of this series, I thought I'll bring this song to the table here. And in this, the word Tummeda has been handled in multiple ways by the poet. And what I have understood was, being primarily a poet of Vishishtadvaita, even though Annamacharya is a poet of Vishishtadvaita, but if we study Annamacharya, we see that there are compositions where he reflects Advaita, there are compositions where there is Dvaita, we see compositions where you can clearly see the Sankhya philosophy, the dualities of Purusha Prakriti, and all these dual ideas you can see very clearly. And I think in this composition, I found a lot of the Vaisheshika philosophy very much embedded, especially when you look at the ideas of, the 5 elements and the idea of the 5 sensory perceptions. And we know that he's influenced by Vaisheshika also, because he refers to Lord Narayana as Paramanu Rupa, even in Sriman Narayana. So the idea of the Lord as the primordial Param Anu, or the atom, is a very Vaisheshika based idea. So in my composition, primarily, I deal with Tummeda on 3 levels. So in the first charanam, these Tummedas are the senses, or the 5 senses. They work as the Tummedas, or the bees. And she says, the way the senses are so restless, it is exactly like the Tummedas that are sitting on the flowers, outside. So that is one aspect. In the second stanza, the idea of the Tummeda gently shifts to the Manas, and the idea of Madana using the Tummedas, and the idea of the moon taking over the Manas completely and making you a slave to your sensory perception. And in the last charanam, Tummeda is Lord Venkateshwara himself, the major Tummeda, or the primary bee sitting there on the Venkatapati hill. So here the connotation of Tummeda keeps changing in the entire composition. And I found it a very interesting composition because it is so layered. And so somebody asked me when I was working on this, when she keeps saying Tummedaro in every line, whom is she addressing? Whom is she addressing? So my answer to this was that she's not addressing anybody. Basically, it is a Manasa Bodha. She's telling herself, like Tummedaro, when she's talking to her senses, she's talking to her own senses. When she's talking to her Manas, she's talking to her own Manas. And when she's talking to Swami, she's talking to her own Swami. So I think that is the basic concept in which I explored Tummedaro. In 3 different time zones, I thought it would be very interesting to see, the bees of the daytime, and then in the Manas, in the twilight time. And then when she says that the moonlight takes you over, I thought, I'd show the moonlight, or that period when, she's completely surrendering to the primordial Tummeda, or the bee Venkateshwara. So that is a little about my song. And I think we have gone way beyond the time that we thought we would go, but I think this is such a beautiful, and it has been such a revealing discussion. And my intent here, and I think even Deenababu Garu's intent, our intent was that the whole idea of bringing to Natya Kirtanam artists of this caliber is also for us to understand that the Sahityam of Annamacharya is so diverse, so multifaceted, that practitioners who think on different levels of understanding how they can all come together and give their own and own these compositions, completely make it theirs, and give us so much understanding of how Sahityam in general and Annamacharya in particular must be approached. So I think that is something that will be a priceless takeaway. And this panel discussion will be available on YouTube for people to watch for quite some time. So I think that is very, very interesting and important that younger dancers listen to these phenomenal artists that we have with us here today. And I'm so honored and I'm so thrilled. I'm so energized by this discussion and by listening to the various interpretations of all you wonderful artists. So I think I thank you so much for responding with such honesty and sincerity towards this whole project and all my questions that I've been bombarding you all with from the past 1.5 hours. So thank you so very much. And I think I'll hand over to Deenababu Garu to give his final words. I'd like to thank each and every dancer, guru, teacher who's part of phase 2, Nata Kirtanam. I'd like to thank Swetha Prasad and Renuka Prasad for the immense work they've put in. I'd like to thank Panimadhav Garu for doing this back and forth with us continuously. And of course, I now hand over to the brain behind the whole project, Deenababu Garu.
Thank you, Anupama Garu. That was a very wonderful and interesting session. I learned a lot through this process. And just to, before I conclude, I just want to acknowledge this Sampada, this Nata Kirtanam, all these beautiful names Mr. Panimadhav Kasturi has come up with. I have to give the complete credit to him. Right. How do we call this? What do we call this project? He suggested this, we'll go with the Nata Kirtanam. So that is how we are trying to popularize. The great Vagyakara has written 32,000 kirtanams, I would say 32 or 33. And out of which maybe 2,000 or 3,000 songs are composed for music, but very few I see in the dance repertoire, maybe 50 or 60 songs, because that started us to think in this direction, because we were conducting competitions wherever we see same songs, people are repeating, the students again and again and again and again. So can't we change this? And this is something that we want to show to the world. The literature, the Annamacharya literature is so complex. Even our mother tongue is Telugu, we cannot really understand what he means by that particular sentence or word. You must have seen all this, the words that that are used during the discussion. Even for us, being a Telugu person, it's difficult to understand those. And that 600 years ago, I don't know what kind of Telugu they were using, or he's completely different. But now there is a lot of research that this is a research project that we are producing, and all these artists who are this caliber, they are here because they liked the cause. The moment we requested, they accepted, and I bow my head to each and every one of you for coming forward to be part of this project. It means a lot, and we want to show this as a path for this dance fraternity to explore. We want to tell them there is so much to dig into in this space. There is so much we could do together, or alone. We can choose different paths. And earlier, a lot of these performers were telling, right, we have given the set of music, predefined music. They don't have the flexibility to go away from that. Correct. Normally, the dancers, they come up with their own choreography, they add their judges. Here, the problem is, we don't know, who will be performing for these items when we started this. So we have to come up with something. We have used this framework, but again, we are telling the whole world that they don't have to follow only this song. Use this, as a reference, and you explore your own way of doing things. That's absolutely fine. The intent behind this is to popularize these great compositions of Annamacharya or any other Vagyakaras, lesser known compositions, through dance. That is the only intent. With that, I want to thank all the viewers for watching us live. And tomorrow and day after tomorrow, excellent these performances are lined up. And some of these performers, they have not performed for earlier, Anuradha was telling, and Venki Garu was telling, they stopped performing. Even Anuradha Garu was telling, they stopped performing for the last couple of years. And we requested them, you have to participate, you have to perform, So a lot of your students and all the people, who are, they're really looking forward to, each and everyone's performance.
A lot of anticipation.
Clearly concerned, a lot of you are very, they're all busy artists. And every day I used to ask Anupama Garu, okay, did you talk to Priya Madam? Did you talk to Vidhya Garu? Did you talk to Srikant Garu? Praveen Garu? How are they? How busy they are? We are little under tension, because not that we will run into any issues, but you're all very busy with your preoccupied commitments. Can we get it on time? Can we make it happen? So that was the stress I went through all these days. But thank you all for taking this very serious and coming out with your best of the performance and choreography. I bow my head to each and every one of you. Viewers, please don't miss this the live for next 2 days. In the morning, 8 a.m. Pacific time on both Saturday and Sunday, which is 9:30 p.m. India time. Probably it will last for 2 hours each session. We would say 2 to 2.5 hours. There are 4 performances on one day and another 4 performances on second day. We are not going to announce which performance is on which day. You have to come and watch both the days. So that's the reason we said 2 days. So one day the panel discussion will be streamed, and Saturday and Sunday there will be 4 on one day and another 4 on second day. So we'll look forward to your participation. Thank you all. Have a wonderful day.
नाट्यकीर्तनम् नाट्यकीर्तनम् नटराजुकु नीराजनम् नाट्यकीर्तनम् भरतमुनिकिदे समर्पणम् नाट्यकीर्तनम् नवरसाभिनय समर्पणम् वाग्गेयकार नाट्य संगीत चतुल सम्मेलनम् नाट्यकीर्तनम् नाट्यकीर्तनम् नाट्यकीर्तनम्